Junkyard Shanks versus regular Shanks. Dorry and Brogy are also there for reasons, as are some familiar faces that you may have missed, as well as why this battle is signifying the impending end of One Piece. Who would have thought the kid would have been so important? Not me, and that's why we're starting with Shanks. It's pretty insane to think that no matter which path our worst generation members took after leaving Wano, each of them would end up facing a world boss. Law's path took him to Blackbeard, Luffy has ended up in a conflict against an admiral and an elder star, and Kid honestly probably has it worst of all, coming into conflict with Shanks. Something really fun to note is that this is the path that Luffy originally wanted to take. Both he and Kid were keen on the middle direction, but Kid won the right to sail down that road purely through luck and or fate, I suppose. If Luffy got his way on Wano, then he would be meeting Shanks right now. Statistically speaking, there was a 50-50 chance that Luffy would be returning the Straw Hat as we speak. And I think that Shanks absolutely would have accepted this meeting, because Luffy has done the thing it is he promised to do by becoming a great pirate. One officially on Shanks's level, which is why I think that we should remember this moment, because this is the meeting that could have been. If One Piece were an RPG, then this would be the deceptively simple key to unlocking the good ending. But now, who knows if Luffy will ever get that chance? The Elbaf section plays out very nostalgically by recreating a lot of familiar aspects of the very first chapter, most notably of which being the Luffy-like giant boy who is begging to join the Red Hair Pirates. Which makes me wonder just how many kids are out there who have asked Shanks the same thing. I mean, the man very clearly spends a lot, and I mean a lot of time at the bar, so this might be a very common occurrence. And maybe Shanks has a standard script that he follows with all of these kids. Like with Luffy, he said, "Return this hat to me when you become a great pirate." But with another kid, he might be like, "Return this cloak to me when you become a great pirate." Or "Return this shirt to me when you become a great pirate." And after a while, Shanks, he just starts running out of clothes, so it's like, "Return this sock to me when you become a great pirate." And eventually it comes all the way down to, "Return my underwear to me when you become a great pirate, please, I need it." And maybe there's a kid in training right now waiting to start his crew called the Pantsu Pirates. I really enjoyed this scene though, because it shows on a micro scale how much Shanks influences this world, in much the same way that his Captain Roger did with a young Pedro. Because we know through Luffy that small interactions like this can bloom into world-changing results. As much as I don't think we'll go this far in One Piece, I would bet ever so many units of currency that this giant child in world goes on to become some sort of great historical figure. And then there's also the bar owner swooning over Shanks like a certain Makino. However, I can't help but think the bar owner looks almost exactly like a human version of Hera. A much softer Hera, but the hairstyle and facial features are so close, and I think we can make a connection. Like perhaps this bar owner is someone Big Mom knew during her time on Elbaf and took visual inspiration from. Because remember, the giants typically live for over 300 years. So this bar owner being around like 60 years ago when Big Mom was young is very conceivable. But there are two potentially foreboding elements of this Chapter 1 homage. One is that the events of Chapter 1 don't exactly have the greatest of endings for Mr. Shanks who lost an arm. So if things continue to play out that way, then Shanks is going to have even more trouble opening doors than he already does. And the second is that in this Chapter 1 remix, we have Eustace Kid playing the role of Higuma the Bear, which is not a great sign for his future either. No matter what happens, I feel like someone is losing an arm, or more accurately, someone is losing another arm. You know, come to think of it, that's pretty funny. The idea that Shanks gave an arm for Luffy, but took an arm from Kid, it's quite poetic. The perspective of the scene was a bit trippy though, because Shanks and the giants look the same size in close-ups, but then you cut to the wide shot of the bar with these massive chunks of meat, and the red hair pirates are looking more like Tontada. Shanks is drinking out of the giant sake cup as well. That cup is called a Sakazuki in case you didn't know, which is a bit of a twisted irony for Magma Admiral related reasons. But what this reminds me of most is Shanks's meeting with Whitebeard, because back then he also drank out of a giant sake cup that appeared from nowhere. And I wonder if he just carries around a souvenir giant cup from Elbaf because Shanks likes to go big or go home, and he's never going home. Although speaking of home, the sake that Shanks brought to Whitebeard allegedly came from his quote hometown in West Blue. Something very intriguing because we've since learned that he was found as a baby on God Valley. Just, you know, flagging two pieces of a puzzle that eventually need to come together. But I really liked Shanks' line about not wanting to turn Elbaf into a war zone because it's like, mate, you're in Warland. With that kind of name, they're asking for it. Which brings us to the massive surprise, which is Dorry and Brogy, two characters who I never expected to see outside of Little Garden. In fact, I was convinced that One Piece would end with the two of them still fighting, as if all of One Piece took place in a tiny sliver of their greater century-long epic tale. There's two reasons why I think that they would have left Little Garden that I can think of. There might be more that you can think of. Let me know if you have more. I don't. But one of them is that one of them finally won. Damn, there were a lot of ones in that sentence, like I was speaking in binary or something. But either Either Dorry or Brogy finally emerged victorious, or they remembered what they were fighting about and decided that, you know what, it doesn't matter anymore. In regards to that second option, you may not have immediately noticed this, but Oimo and Kashi, the Enisobi giants, are also present with Dorry and Brogy because they were all part of the same crew, the giant warrior pirates. And after Enisobi, Oimo and Kashi stayed on Water 7 for a while, but eventually they built a ship and set sail back to Elbaf, which, quite notably, is in the direct opposite direction of Little Garden. But Oimo and Kashi would have had the location of Dorry and Brogy from Usopp, so they could have gone there at some stage and reminded their captains of how their fight began. So, slight update, I did go back and actually check, and it seems incredibly unlikely that Oimo and Kashi did actually sail back to Little Garden, because in the whole Return to Water 7 arc, there's a part where Oimo says, oh, well, we can't go to Little Garden if our bosses are still doing the fighting. So, you know, I guess that leaves us with just one conclusion. Oh, hi, Zoro. I guess that leaves us with one conclusion, which is that the fight ended. Either Dorry or Brogy won, or they both lost, or they both won. But it's done. What's more curious is that it's implied that Dorry and Brogy are old acquaintances of Shanks, and it makes me wonder if the red hair pirates found them, or if Shanks encountered them during his days with Roger, because I think the latter is definitely possible. Roger's path seems to coincide very well with the one that Luffy took. For example, Dr. Kureha knows Roger, so he probably stopped at Drum. We also know he went to Skypiea, he went to Water 7, Fishman Island, etc. Essentially, anywhere Luffy goes, Roger has probably also been, except for Wano. Roger never went to Wano, that we know of. And that may explain why Dorry and Brogy were so friendly to the Straw Hats, because their impressions of human pirates through the Roger crew would have been very positive, bordering on alcoholic, which may be why Brogy's first words were asking about ale. But with this power foursome, surely there's been a lot of talk about Usopp. Dorry, Brogy, Oimo, and Kashi all have very strong ties to Usopp in particular, and I can imagine them telling Yasopp about how heroic his son is, a true warrior of the sea, rah rah rah, and then building Yasopp up for an unexpected meeting with his son, who is not, at least outwardly, quite the Giga Chad pirate warrior that the giants built him up to be. As exciting as all of this is, I do have one big question, which I'm going to issue to Eustace Kid, and that question is, why? Exactly what does Kid hope to gain from this fight? He seems to have this almost Jem'Hadar mentality of needing to fight even if he knows he's going to lose. Because it's not just Shanks we're talking about, it's Shanks and all of the officers. Actually, it's Shanks, all of his officers, and his extended Grand Fleet. Actually, it's Shanks, all of his officers, the Grand Fleet, and the Giants. This is an order of magnitude worse than the last time Kid lost to this crew. So Kid is really Vegeta-ing his way into a beating here, because yes, he is credited with defeating Big Mom, but I think he's buying a bit too much into his own hype here. But Kid, of all people, should know the truth of what he is, as well as the truth that Trafalgar Law isn't here to carry him this time. Now, to be fair, I was very pessimistic in regards to Law and the Heart Pirates versus Blackbeard, and they've actually performed so much better than I ever expected. To be fair though, they had a terrain advantage, which Kid does not. The Heart Pirates had a strategy. Kid's strategy is that a Shanks? I'ma fight it. And most importantly, Law is only up against a fraction of Blackbeard's forces, whereas Kid is up against seemingly everything and more. I do think that Kid will do slightly better than most of us anticipate, but there is no chance. And I can even see a situation where Kid and Law meet up down the line and have the following chat. Mate, what happened to you? Bruh, I got beat up by this emperor who stole my mystery cube rubbings. Mate, me too. Although we can now say once and for all that Shanks is not the one who disarmed Kid. And this chapter seems to imply that it was Ben Beckman, which sounds absolutely brutal. Having an arm cleanly sliced off by a sword is one thing, but having it cut to pieces by gunfire sounds like a whole new realm of generally unpleasant. And you know, it seems like such a big bet for such little return. And the only solid reason I can see for doing this is because Shanks may have the final road poneglyph. Although that also brings up something interesting. Shanks plans to take Kid's poneglyph rubbings, which implies that Shanks doesn't actually know where Laugh Tale is. I'd always assumed he did because they worked it out aboard the Oro Jackson, but Shanks may genuinely not know. Otherwise, why would he care about the mystery cubes at all? I mean, Shanks has at the very least been in the presence of all 4 road poneglyphs or all 4 road poneglyph rubbings. So I guess the crew just didn't tell him where they went? Or maybe it's a Luffy thing where Shanks refused the information, wanting to one day make it to Laugh Tale on his own merits. Again, though, you know, speaking of merits, he kind of doesn't have much because he has a cheat sheet. He knows where all 4 of the road poneglyphs are, because he went to most of them. And if anything, Shanks is the one who likely knows where the final final road poneglyph is if he doesn't possess it himself. And that's relevant because Kid currently has both Big Mom and Kaido's poneglyph information, which if Shanks did have the final one, then that would give him everything minus Zoe. Meanwhile, Blackbeard is likely to have Law's poneglyph information, which consists of both Zoe and Wano, whilst Luffy has Wano, Zoe, and Whole Cake Island, but is missing that final one that Mr. Shanks may very well have. It's almost like setting up a battle royale situation, where these three emperors are all converging on Laugh Tale, each one of them holding information that another one of them needs. And if you add Cross-Guild into the situation, we could even end up with a clash of all four emperors very non-consensually trading their poneglyph info. I feel like Luffy will go and physically find the last one, because that's adventure, and adventure is the thing that One Piece is about. But as for the poneglyphs that Blackbeard needs, well, right now, both of them could very well be in the possession of Shanks. So he could do his classic thing of just murdering and stealing his way to victory. Whatever the case may be, we've just taken a massive step forward towards the cataclysmic finale of One Piece, and from here on out, every moment of every chapter is critical.